last night maybe a little bit of a wake-up call, if you want to call it
I
that?
wouldn't call it a wake-up call. I'll call it frustrating.
Okay.
Wouldn't go as far as disappointing. Just didn't like us falling behind 2-0. I know there wasn't much going on that period. Both teams probably had 3 chances apiece. Both teams had 2 power plays, but we just didn't have a sense of urgency to our game, and we just handed them 20 minutes of hockey. We found ourselves down 2-0. And the Islanders are a very good team. Probably, they're a playoff caliber team. They made the playoffs last year. They do a lot of things really well that we don't need to hand them things. And I thought we did that last night. So I know we're not going to go undefeated here. We're not going to win every game. Just left the rink last night frustrated, and watching it back again this morning, the same. These teams are going to beat you in this league. Anyone can. But you want them to earn it a little bit. I thought we provided a little bit last night.
The standings could align that Detroit and Florida match up. Does that creep in at all?
No, I don't think so. We're just battling for points. This is the hottest team, arguably the best team in the league right now. This is our last opportunity at home before we go on an extremely, extremely difficult road trip here. So I think it's just going to be about us playing the right way against a very good opponent.
Will Alex Lyon start tomorrow?
Yep, Alex will be back in tomorrow. You asked last night. Obviously not the best by Alex. I don't know if I can fault him on anything. We look back on that game last night. It's probably the first time in a long time their goalie outplayed our goalie. I think that speaks volumes about Alex and James. It was just one of those nights, but full confidence with him. We'll get him back in tomorrow, knowing we have 3 days before our next game.
Obviously, he had a great stint for the Panthers last year.
Yep.
This is a much longer stretch for him in the NHL. Can you put that into perspective, these last 2 months?
Yeah, it's hard, and I think we have to be smart about managing it. Obviously, we've got James a couple spot starts there, in which he won and played very well. But he's such a cerebral guy, goaltender, the way he looks at the position. Basically, he's relating all these experiences to the success he had in the American Hockey League. This workload would be nothing for him in the American Hockey League, and it's a lot different there. You get some tough travel, some tough back-to-backs, but he's relating to it. It's different at the NHL level, and just for him to talk like that, I think says a lot about him and how he approaches things. So yeah, there's a lot to it. I think we got to be smart with how we handle him, and I think he's got to be smart with his approach too.
All these teams down the stretch have talent. They have all season, but as a staff, when players are going through the reps, the preparedness, how much are you emphasizing to them the off-ice stuff to avoid going through the motions?
It was very smart. Practice today was fairly intense. That's probably, we might be able to squeeze in a couple more, maybe a little bit more intense than today, but it was a purpose today. Even if it hurts us a little bit, maybe energy more. I thought it was a very important practice today on some things we're trying to work out in detail, but of course we have to be smart. In this day and age of sports science, our strength coach is the first guy we talk to on what the next day should look like, who, what, and where, and why. But it's real. You have to manage it. You want to give yourself as much energy and a chance every single night. You can do that through rest, but you also need to do that through preparation. And unfortunately, sometimes it has to be through practice. So it's a tough balance. Some teams in this league, I would say 3/4 of the teams in this league right now don't practice at all right now. And they have no problem telling to everyone. That's their approach. It's not where we're at. We need to keep growing a little bit. We need to keep detailing our game out.
Is it also, taking advantage when you can? 'Cause you have a little bit of breathing room next week, but then you go into a 3 and 4 on the road.
Yeah, 3 and 4 again. We'll get quality practice in next week. And exactly, the schedule allowed us to have a little more up-tempo practice today.
You hear everyone talk a lot about leveling up at this time of the year, and then when you get into the playoffs, it levels up even more. Just what you're saying right now, what does that mean for your group specifically, and how do you kind of portray that message to them, like the next level?
I think for us, that's probably more internal as a staff,
Yeah.
managing that. We're about every moment, every day. I'd say it was a tough video meeting. It probably was the reason why we had a little extra jump in practice today. And again, some of the frustration I talked about last night into today was very similar to their team. And you hopefully can hold the group to a standard, again, on outcome. And last night, we didn't have the performance or the outcome. Opportunity reset. But I think the bigger picture, when you're talking like that, I think that's down the road. Maybe in the back of the coach's mind and not the players.
How do you plan practice? Like, is it something where you have, I want to work on this, and I'm going to build it up the night before? Like, how do you, like, as a coach, what's kind of...
Yeah, we'll talk about it all week. We'll kind of have a plan for the week.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it post-game last night, and then we'll sit for 2-3 hours this morning before and detail it out to an exact. So it's pretty standard throughout the league.
But I mean, like, for you, is it something where, like, as a staff, you'd be like, okay, we want to work on, say, defensive zone coverage or something like this? Is it something where you try to build various parts that work together? Like, how do you kind of, like, what kind of...
It's probably earlier on. Right now, you're building on
Yeah.
things in your hole. Our breakout
Yeah.
detail was not great last night with support positions. We worked on it today. We got some forecheck drill in at the end, which has some resistance, but we didn't have a very good forechecking game last night. We just didn't skate. So yes, there's always big picture. We weren't a great arrival team a couple of games ago, so you're always working in the moment and try to rep out. That's kind of the thought process on it.
kind of, it's kind of building in tomorrow. It also seems like knowing your opponent tomorrow, that's something too. That will
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
opponent based,
Yeah.
but again, mostly it's about us.
Okay, then moving on to Florida, like, what are the things that they bring that you're kind of selling right now?
Depth.
Yeah.
That's a scary top six. We have a very unique lineup where we're offensive throughout the entire lineup, but you can get stuck with some tough matchups. I think they have the best two-way center in the league by far, and it's just to see the depth in their lineup. Even Lalonde can shut people down as a third-line center. This might be the best team in the league, and it's playing itself out like that. So it just creates a lot of issues. They don't give up much. You look at the talent, but they're a really, really good defensive team. And I think they're going in that process of good to great because they're really emphasizing what's going to be important in the playoffs for them.
You've kind of seen it firsthand, being from Tampa and now being here playing with like,
Yep.
when you kind of watch a team on that perspective, is there anything that kind of sticks out for you as this is why, or is it certain players, like what kind of, has teams kind of take that step, like around the league?
Talent.
Talent?
Period.
Yeah.
But then though when you see that talent starting to play the right way with a purpose, that's when I think you see that next step. And it seems like they're in that transition.
You're a week out from the trade deadline. I don't know how much you talk to Steve through this process, but when you have a group that's clicking the way yours has, like, how does that affect what you maybe would like to see happen?
Yeah, I don't know what I would like to see happen. I think I will say this. I've been getting this question a lot, which is natural up to the deadline. I think what Steve has done here in his tenure here, obviously the guys in the room is what he built. I think there's a huge trust from both coaches and players on whatever he does. So I just think there's a confidence in what he does. We communicate. I'm the coach. I'm comfortable coaching whatever he does or brings to us. I know he has the best interest in the micro, which is now, and the macro, the big picture going forward. So I won't lose a ton of sleep. I don't think our guys will either. Maybe the most aggressive move of all would be no move at all. I think that would speak volumes on where our group's at.
Why would that be the most aggressive?
Because we're confident in the group, and we're still looking at the big picture, but we're comfortable with the group too.
Slightly logistical question, just curious, I know obviously Florida tomorrow, but Wednesday you go to Colorado, and we always hear about the going there and the altitude and everything like that, with 3 days between, is it something where you plan?
No.
Okay.
No.
No.
Do you talk to, talk to Steve and it's like, all right, boy, I'd like to have this or that? I mean, do you guys have those
Of
conversations?
course, we're always throwing things out, sometimes specific players, but it's big picture. And again, I want it all. I want a $210 million cap. I want a ton of in every position. I'm a coach. It's my job to win now. And Steve's got to think about the big picture. And he has an entire staff that works on this 24 hours a day. We don't. I got a perfect example. I I talked to one of his assistants last year. I brought up a D-man I had back in college, recruited, I liked a lot. I was going to become a free agent. And I had a perception of what I thought he was. And he told me he doesn't think he can skate anymore. And I'm not saying I didn't believe him, but I don't watch him every day. It's not my job. So then he was on TV the next night, and I'm like, oh my God, he can't skate anymore. They have their job, we have our job, and I think this is why it's working and going like this.
To go back to the Panthers, obviously, like you said, a super talented team, but also seemingly a team that thrives on some of the like extracurricular stuff as well. How do you strike the right balance between kind of standing up for yourself and
Yeah, I think
investing
that's
your energy
always
the right
about.
way?
We're not built like that. It's fine, but I think there's a balance in the league now where you just have to stick up for yourself, stick up for teammates. There's a time and place without taking away what you're trying to do. So I don't. Yeah, that's not just. What I really like about this group, I don't think we're ever to the point where we're going to be pushing people around, but we've never went through a game where we didn't stand up for ourselves, and we haven't backed down. What does that look like? It's different, I think, every night. I think there's a little less of that this time of year. Seems like that mid-season, you really need it. There's some nights we went back there feeling we might have missed out on that, but I think now it's a lot more hockey-based. There's always that stuff, but I like our group. We've kind of have a stick up for each other pack mentality. But I don't know if our team's going to be bullying people around, but it's kind of I see it, it's still part of the league, but it's phasing itself out a little bit.